It's 11:14. We'll be starting in about 1 minute. We appreciate everyone being here today. If you're sitting in the back, we'd ask that you sit in the first two rows, so we can be close to each other.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm glad you all joined us today for this powerful symposium, our chat on mental health. We have a dynamic panel today that's going to bring you some information, hopefully help you or someone you know ministry here at Grace Baptist Church. And today, our moderator is our very own Pastor William F. Richardson III. Pastor Will holds a bachelor's and a master's of divinity from Virginia Union University. He is a trained professional chaplain with the Association of Clinical Pastoral Care and a doctoral student at Duke University Divinity School. In addition to his pastoral duties, Pastor Will serves as Assistant General Secretary of the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated and sits on its executive board. President of the Florida He's also president of the Florida chapter of the National Action Network under the leadership of Reverend Al Sharpton. We have Dr. Shaquila Campbell. She is a family medicine physician, originally from the Bronx, New York. She earned her graduate degree from New York Institute of Technology and received her medical degree from Ross University School of Medicine. Dr. Campbell completed her family medicine residency at the University of Central Florida, HCA Gainesville, graduating with the class of 2025. She currently provides comprehensive outpatient care at Cleveland Clinic Tradition. Dr. Juliette Lomax Homier, originally from Queens, New York, graduated from Boston University with both her undergraduate and medical degrees. She completed her residency in obstetrics and gynecology at Boston City Hospital. She served through the National Health Service Corps in Fort Pierce, Florida, and transitioned to private practice for 32 years as founder of Just Ladies Healthcare. She now serves as Regional Campus Dean at the Fort Pierce Regional Campus of the FSU College of Medicine. Dr. Sharday Tripp is a licensed mental health counselor, qualified supervisor, and founder and CEO of Dr. Tripp and Associates. She leads a growing team of over 60 providers delivering comprehensive mental health services across Florida. Dr. Tripp is passionate about increasing access to quality, equitable care and empowering individuals, couples, and families to heal, thrive, and transform. Please join me in welcoming our panel and our moderator, Reverend William F. Richardson.
Wonderful. This is Miss Jessica Jordan, who is the president of our health and wellness ministry here at Grace, and we are thankful for her and her organizing. Again, give our panelists a hand, if you will. These folks have come to be part of this today because they believe in this work, and they are doing this work. And I have the privilege of being on this panel with them today. They are experts in their fields. I must say, 2 out of the 3 are members of Grace Baptist Church. So I want to thank them. And Dr. Tripp, we're working on her. So, no, but she is a friend and you will see how exceptional she is in this community. And we're excited about being associated with her. Dr. Campbell, you are a physician at Cleveland Clinic, and you've heard her bio, and Dr. Lomax is a stalwart in the community of Treasure Coast and beyond. And so we're excited to have them here with us. So why don't we just get right into it. Dr. Campbell, how can stress, anxiety, and depression, grief, or trauma show up physically in the body? And when a person doesn't recognize, when does a person recognize that they're struggling with this?
Hello, everybody. So stress, anxiety can show up in many ways. And so I'll say for an individual who's not actually recognizing that they're having some mental health issues, I see it mainly with them struggling with insomnia. And so you may just not be having issues with falling asleep, your mind is racing, you can't relax, or you're just having brain fog, or just feeling fatigue. So it can show up in many different areas. I hope that's answering the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so I want to follow up with Dr. Lomax. Give us an example of someone who came in for one thing, but was dealing with something else that, even though it was related to the physical body, you may have felt that there may have been some other issues. How do you handle that?
Best thing to do sometimes is conversation, but there are also inventories that you can ask a patient to answer some questions, and it gives you a sense of whether or not they're depressed or having anxiety. Many times it's life circumstances. With women, it can be puberty makes you have anxiety. It may be menopause and the loss of your hormonal pattern, which can make you have depression and anxiety. And then other times it's things that are affecting your life. It can be your work life, your family life, your everyday activities that can give you stress. The other thing that people don't always do is to take time for wellness and to take care of themselves, exercise, eating well, staying away from toxic situations. I think it's all about how you govern yourself, but sometimes the first question we can ask, a patient will give you, a paragraph in terms of an answer. We as practitioners just sometimes have to ask the question.
You touched upon something that was later on the list, but since we're here, as it relates, you and our audience today is majority women. What is, how does the physicality of women, whether it be menopause, whether it be post maternity, the different physiological things that women specifically go through that you see in your practice as it relates to one's mental wellness, and how can the church help support women in these ways?
Question. I think for myself personally, as a professional, my favorite biblical verse is "Do not be anxious for anything." And I would use that prepping for OR, taking care of sick people. I am a believer in that you have to have that base so that you don't forget. But with patients, it can be at different times of your life. I think that one thing about women is that we all go through puberty and start having these hormones. And if change become alien, kind of out of order, and you have to try to ground them to make them feel normal as they're growing into this body. But then on the other spectrum, and I'm going to speak to this audience specifically, when you're becoming menopausal, up, many of us can just fall off the cliff. You get more anxious than you ever were. Dryness, you may be perspiring, you may be hot when no one else is, and it's just an irritable. I'm a big proponent of I'm not going to start you on hormone therapy in the 70s, but I will use them in my earlier patients, 50s, 52, 55, whatever. But I think that makes a huge difference in mental health and anxiety for women. As we get older, the aging process is humbling because things stop working or they don't work as well as they used to. And people have to adjust to the new normal. And that's a big change for us. And of course, when like I'm celebrating hopefully the birth of a baby, but then in the other end of it, we celebrate when people transition out. And that can be a big change in your personality. That's going to affect you. So the longer we live, the more we see, the more we know, and we ebb and flow. And that was a long answer to your question.
That was a beautiful answer to the question. Let me switch the mics here because So, thank you for the answer. So, how, Dr. Tripp, in the church, as Dr. Lomax just stated, um, there's a foundational piece that we need to have to our therapy that is faith driven. Um, However, we have this ongoing thing, as you know, in the church that's culturally based, where we often will pray it away, where you need to just pray harder, um, you need to fast and pray, you need to get your prayer life together. Have all these spiritual quotes, which may be true. You may need to get your prayer life together. You may need to fast and pray because we know that some things are only dealt with in the spiritual realm with fasting and praying. So, okay, that's true. But you may also need therapy, right, to be in balance with that. So, how do you define when I'm having, how do I define my spiritual therapy when I may need something beyond that, where I may need clinical intervention? How do you differentiate between the two?
Ooh, I love this question. So, as a woman of faith myself and a licensed mental health counselor, there's a crossroads there. And what I would say to that is prayer absolutely has to be our foundation, and professional help should not compete with that. It should be an additive. So, and I'll get personal with you all for a moment. I am recovering from a gallbladder surgery, and I experienced the worst pain I have ever felt in my abdomen ever, worse than childbirth. I got on my knees immediately and prayed.
All right.
Immediately. However, faith without works is dead.
Huh?
So I had to get on my feet and see my surgeon immediately. So I believe in both and when prayer and spiritual language gets in the way of healing, and a person starts to isolate or wants to do harm to themselves or to others, we definitely need to seek intervention. And that would be my answer to that.
Okay, so, but I want to follow up with you because you have what, over 60 practitioners that you see across the state. So you're seeing quite a number of people with different issues and concerns. But in our community, we have this um, sometimes mistrust, and this is really to everybody, this mistrust of the medical system, right? So, there's the mistrust of the medical system because we know what they have done to African Americans in this country, without going into detail on that. And then we understand that there is a certain level of cultural resistance to mental wellness in our communities. I want to say I think that comes from a culture that says what happens in this house stays in this house. Well, that was because Big Mama didn't want you to tell nobody we didn't have no hot water this morning, or the lights was off, or we didn't eat breakfast this morning. What happens here stays here. But what that created was a cultural environment that held other traumas secret as well. And so we didn't talk about these things, and we just pushed on and we carried on. And then when we brought it to the church, I mean, in my church, I don't know about y'all's, when I was growing up, it was about pray about it. You know, seek God harder, get on your knees. And as I said, that's true. So how do we help combat that mistrust along with cultural resistance to mental care in our community?
Yes, Pastor Will, I definitely agree with you. Stigma in our community is very real, even present day in 2026. You touched on cultural mistrust, which absolutely I agree with, and access. So I think the ways to combat that is what we're doing today, having those conversations, the church being a safe space to engage and to discuss and to educate. I also think it's extremely important for us to find and know cultural, competent clinicians, because not all therapists and providers are created equally. You must seek out and consult and identify those that will do no harm. But I'm very curious to know what the other panelists have to say.
So I agree. Being here today is a great step in, breaking down those stigmas, and to allow us to just kind of have this conversation and feel more comfortable about mental health in general. And then to piggyback off of her point about finding physicians and providers, for me as a primary care provider, this is an area where I pick up a lot of mental health issues. And so simply having your annual physical exam, it's built into that exam to screen for mental health issues. And so that's an opportunity where your physician can address certain things. And so I just want to get a little bit into treatment, specifically medications for mental health issues. And because I feel there's a resistance there with certain people, not because of, the stigma of mental health, but the feeling like these medications don't work for me, and or they had an experience in the past where it's like they don't do anything. And so, seeing your provider and being involved with more up-to-date medicine, we learned that there's many antidepressants, but there's new ways they're doing things. Now, psychiatrists, they're doing cheek swabs and getting genetic analysis and seeing what specific medication may work for you. So you're not doing like the trial and error. There's advance in medicine. And so being involved and being linked in with your provider is the only way you'll be able to have access to that. So that's kind of my line.
So you're saying part of my mental wellness is having my primary care regular checkup, right?
Absolutely.
Because if I do that, medicine today, we have the ability to prescribe medicine specifically
For an individual.
How do we do that?
So I personally don't do the cheek swabs, but I can get you plugged in with psych, and they.
And what does the cheek swab do?
So it's relatively new, but I'm seeing more psychs doing this form of kind of finding out which medication works for individuals, and it's just like there's certain DNA markers that make a certain antidepressant work better for you. And so with antidepressants, there's so many medications, there's different classes, and sometimes it takes a long time to build in your system. It may take about 4 weeks or so before you can truly determine if you want to increase the dose or even change the medication. And so it can be a period of trial and error. And I find my patients getting frustrated, and they may give up, or they've had an experience in the past where they've done a few medications and they quit. And so what I'm saying is that now I don't do this specifically, but there are, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm just a primary care doctor, but they do have that where they do the cheek swab and they can specifically find a certain antidepressant for them.
You're saying you can ask your primary care
and
provider.
then I can get you plugged in. Me personally, I don't do that.
Right. No, but you ask your primary care provider, and they will be able to you'll be able to direct them to that. Right?
Yes.
So, like, Advil may work on somebody, but because of your genetic makeup, Advil may not work for you, and you may need to use another ibuprofen brand. Is that, am I
like
following?
Lexapro, or
Okay.
all of the different antidepressants. There's so many different antidepressants out there.
Okay, so some people, Dr. Shkila, have checked out when you start talking about medicine. So let me come back to Dr. Lomax and Dr. Tripp. Help us find the synergy between my physical body that needs chemical care and my mind, which also operates off of chemical, and what are some therapies that I can do that you prescribe. So for instance, Dr. Lomax, if you have somebody come in, they have one issue, you're not just pushing pills, but you're interested in their whole self, their whole care. When is the moment you say, hey, do these 3 things a day, or start to take time on this today that relates and has implications to the physical body?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's pretty relevant to what I'm currently working on now. I take care of adult students who come with open minds and then are given a lot of work to do. And people come with depression and anxiety in this situation because it's a time-sensitive time when things must be completed. So that's number one. And with that, I really like to focus on what people do for their own particular wellness. So I always start with, what are you eating? Because not every food that you place in your body is healthy. And then what kind of exercise do you get? So the standard for all of us, we should minimize at least 30 minutes of doing some kind of physical activity. And physical activity is kind of get that bad humor out of your bodies. But if you have all day where you're indoors, you're not in any sunlight, you're not moving around, you're not socializing with people, all you're doing is working, that's a very unhealthy lifestyle. Very, very unhealthy. And especially with women, as we get older, we have more risk for heart
I want to
disease.
slow you down. I
Yeah.
want to spend some time. I'll hang out there for a minute.
Okay, okay.
So you're saying that how I handle my day
Correct.
has physical impact?
It absolutely does, because if you are fretful and you have stress and anxiety because you're trying to do 12 things in one day when you really only have time for 2, you're going to be overwhelmed. And if you're overwhelmed, then you're going to present to your primary care as being anxious and not feeling well because you can't accomplish the task that you may have given yourself too much to chew. How many of you all do that? Have too many things? Yeah, all of you. All of you are supposed to be someplace else right now.
Right now.
Right.
Headed. Think about where we're going now. Dr. Tripp's got to get out of here right now.
That's exactly right.
Great. That's wonderful. So again, I don't want to make assumptions that the anxiety that you talked about or the stress, can you talk about that from a biological standpoint?
Well, with women, with fluctuating hormones, that may give you lots of anxiety. With teenagers who are getting their menstrual cycles for the first time, they may have ups and downs with depression and anxiety, and that's just part of what happens. And of course, as we age and lose some of the ability to do some of the things we always did, people get a little anxiety and depression about those things too.
So, Dr. Tripp, this whole idea of the biology of emotion, can you speak to that a little bit in terms of how our minds have impact and shows up in our physical selves and vice versa?
Yeah, I think when you speak about wellness overall, you can't separate mental and physical wellness. They are definitely a package deal. To Dr. Lomax's point, when discussing anxiety and how that shows up and impacts the body, I think as Black women and the majority of the audience, that's what we are today, a lot of that goes misdiagnosed for us. We were having a discussion before the panel about the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic criteria used here in America on how we are to diagnose patients. However, that DSM was created by a white man, tested on white people. So it's not always applicable or culturally appropriate when looking at diverse populations. So when you're asking about how anxiety shows up biologically, that could look very different for Black women. It's not always fear or worry. It could also translate to anger. Who's heard of the angry Black woman?
Or man.
Or man, to your point, or irritability, or just burnout. All of those symptomologies can directly correlate to anxiety and culturally diverse populations.
So I read a book, Dr. Harris. She talks about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and that she says that you can have, so as a child, you have these experiences that later show up in the body. So the example she uses is when you confront the bear. When you confront a bear, your body prepares to fight or flight. It says, hey, we're going to get ready to go into this battle with this bear, or we're going to get strong enough and get the heck out of here and run as fast as we can. And so that is a survival tool that is good and natural for us to survive. But she says, what if you meet the bear every day? And those emotions and that energy, that anxiety, that stress shows up in the body over and over and over again. that has physical consequences. It has shown that, or even after I've had that as an adult, that when I have these triggers, we call them, right? It's not only a psychological memory, but I'm having physical response that releases toxins into the body that the data shows that causes heart disease and certain cancers. It blew my mind, but makes sense, right? That the things that we are experiencing in our minds are having a impact on our body. So I'm saying all that to say, what are some of the things, the methodologies, Dr. Tripp, first, that we can do to help regulate those types of negative stresses on the body?
Yeah, what I would say, you have to know your triggers. Number one, you have to identify them, you have to name them, and you have to be real with yourself how they are impacting you. I love to ask my clients to participate.
Name them.
Yes, name them.
Talk about that a little bit, because as you know, we're not good in our community about naming stuff. So talk.
Right. It's important. In our community, it's easy for us to, especially as Black women, we're praised for juggling all the things, right? We're wives, we're mothers, we're caregivers, we're leaders in the church, we're leaders in our jobs, we're Uber drivers. The list goes on and on and on. And I think that when we take a moment to pause and actually understand and identify the things that are triggering us and putting a pulse and a finger on that, that is how you're able to name something and make it real for yourself versus going through the motions of your daily lives and getting lost and caught up in that, which takes me to my next point of mindfulness. I love, and let me explain mindfulness. I don't know, has anyone heard that term before? Mindfulness? Okay. So we are familiar with that. And essentially, what that is slowing down, reconnecting, bringing your body back to homeostasis, and being reflective of what you're actually experiencing, leaning into curiosity without judging it. So I encourage all of my clients to pause because life is just busy and it's getting busier. And I think that's important for us when we're speaking of mental health and how to combat that without medications by just taking a very simple step of reflection.
So the medical tie to that, just very interestingly, and this might fit this audience, but women who transition into menopause without hormone replacement therapy may have a little more anxiety and may be actually more at risk for heart disease as time passes. And women who are treated with low-dose estrogen replacement therapies, I'll just say hormonal, may actually fare better with less heart disease as they get older because your body functions in such a way that that transition really does affect you physically and emotionally.
Wow.
Don't really have much to add to
Okay,
that.
well, great. So then, since you have the mic, tell me, what is something that if someone leaves here today, they've heard this information about, I got it in my mind and my body are connected, mindfulness, what's the one thing, and this is for everyone, what's the one takeaway you would want somebody to walk away when they go home? What's the one thing that you would say in regards to their mental wellness and their, as it relates to their physical wellness? What's the one thing you would want them to take away? Or the one action you would want them to take? I put you on the spot. Tripp, you want to
Yeah.
take first, Dr.
It's a good
Lomax?
question.
But you got it.
But there's so many things to take away, but I'll try and mainly just focus on if there is a stigma in anyone's mind about mental health or around mental health, to really just understand that you're not alone if you are experiencing any mental health issues, and there's a lot of support available. And yeah, just that it's very much something that is very common. And so I don't want anyone to feel as if they have to struggle alone and seek help, because there's tons of resources available, tons of, if there's medications or just therapy out there. And really just tap into your resources.
Excellent, thank you.
I'd say the same thing. I think it's important to have a community. I think you have to have other people to speak with. I'll give you the example. We have, again, medical students that travel from Tallahassee where they've been for 2 years, and then they come to this small town USA, and they have to function now as medical interns in a sense because they're working in different hospitals. It's very isolating because they get up early in the morning, they have to study, they go to a new place every 6 weeks, and they don't have any family here. And one thing we try to encourage for that group is that you've got to have people that have some commonality, even if it's just sharing a meal or a lunch, a dinner, potluck, whatever, because it gives you a chance to engage with others. We need each other more than we recognize. And a lot of times we all just go home and close. And you need to do something other than that.
Yes, I agree with both of your statements. And maybe just to add to that is ensuring you're taking personal inventory of how you're feeling throughout the day. I think it's so easy for us to neglect ourselves and just move through it. And as we're taking those inventories, checking in on our neighbors and our friends and our sisters, not just one day when they're struggling or going through something, but consistently over time, 1 year, 1 month, etc. Because I think that, and maybe I'll say it this way, illness is spelled with an I, but when we include the community, we change the I to we, it becomes wellness. So just stepping away with that and just knowing that in community we heal.
Oh yeah, we're taking that. We're gonna put that in the pocket. I to W is wellness. Yeah, that's good. That's gonna show up somewhere in the Duke paper. But so I want to bring it home personally because I'm a pastor, and my ultimate goal is to make people better in all areas. And so sometimes I think that, especially well, specifically in churches, we sometimes can just over spiritualize things so that we don't have to talk about it. How you doing? Oh, I'm highly favored in the Lord. Blah, blah, blah. I woke up this morning, and we don't ever really, so we create this culture where we don't really have honest discussions. And it's not exclusive to the church. It's in all areas, right? So personally, I have had to notice and realize that some responses I'm having have nothing to do with that moment that I'm in, that I'm responding out of something else that has happened either in my day, or you really want to get deep, something else that happened in my childhood or that happened in another relationship. So in other words, let me see here. Joy, my wife. I had a response about her when I asked her to turn up the air conditioner. And she said, "Don't touch the air conditioner." And I took that so personally, so to heart. I mean, over response, right? But I realized that I was responding something else that had happened in my history, right? In my early adulthood. And I was able to come back and say, hey, but my point is, what personally do you do and what I had to do is I had to learn to be aware, Dr. Tripp, you said be aware, name it, understand what that is. Being a parent and having a young adult, Lord have mercy. But realizing that parents, my parents, their parents, they all did the best they could, right? And each one gets better. So one of the things, and I'm on this naming thing, is that she was dealing with something, we addressed it, but I didn't want to talk over it. I wanted to name how she felt, how what happened impacted her. Because even though I'm the parent and I'm ultimately going to be right, I don't want to take the position of being right. I want you to be able to name what's going on, what's happening, so you can process. So those are some of the things that I've had to do is to slow it down, think about it, don't make assumptions to help myself get better, and then being honest to come back and doing repair. So what are some of the things, each one of you, that you do in your own personal lives that helps you keep your mental wellness, mental health, and your overall care. Anyone can take that.
I ride my bike with my headphones in and listening to music. I know I shouldn't do that, but I do it. And sometimes I have my helmet on and sometimes I don't. But that's what I do because I can escape. No one's talking. I can listen to music.
Yes, I agree. Staying active is an amazing way. But let's see. I have two examples. Like Dr. Lomax mentioned about the stress of being a student. So specifically when I was in med school, I was under so much stress, and I remember being so overwhelmed. That probably was the hardest time on my mental health was when I was in med school. And I used to do this. I didn't have a therapist, but what I used to do, and it helped, was I used to just get a blank sheet of paper, and when I was so overwhelmed, I would just write everything down. Like, what is bothering me right now? I'm pressed for this deadline. My hair is ugly. I want to get my hair done, but I don't have time. Like, anything from the biggest thing to the smallest thing, I'll write everything down on a sheet of paper. And then I'll go back at the paper and go from the top to the bottom and say, what can I change? All right, leave that to God. Like, literally, I'll be like, that I can't do anything about. That, okay, I need to do this. Okay, I can do this. And then I will kind of reflect back to the sheet and see what was manageable, what could I address, what was like out of my control and I'm just stressing for no reason, and I just need to let go and let God. And then after that, I used to feel amazing. And I'll be like, okay, I have 3 things here that I actually can do, but the other 20 things, literally, I'm just stressing for no reason. So that was a great way for me to physically see and kind of identify what was the issue that was causing me stress in that time. And then I forgot my other point I was going to say. I guess I'll come back to it if I remember. That was one thing.
I forgot something else, and you made me think about this. So when I was operating, there was a bathroom in the recovery room. So it was a single stall bathroom. And that was my favorite place if I was having a moment that I just needed to collect myself and have a quiet moment and say a prayer where you could be by yourself and no one is going to say, hey, your case is ready in room 5. You could just go in this room and just hide for a minute. But then they made it into a closet, like a storage closet. I was like, they took my room away. So that's number 1. Number 2, in medical school, the top of the building, there was the top floor, there was this little place that you could go outside and watch the pigeons. And no one was ever in this room because it was frigid. And if you had a moment, because you were stressed out, I would go in this room and have a moment, quiet space, no one's talking to you. But when I went back to my reunion, there were all these people in this room. And I'm like, what are you doing in this room? And then, like, I used to come here and have a moment when I was really stressed out. So I laughed because all these years I thought it was my space. But it wasn't.
What do I do? I'll book that flight quick. But in all realness, exactly. In all realness, I practice what I preach. I go to therapy. I'm in there every month, and I use it as a preventative measure, right? Because a lot of people have the misconception that therapy is needed when something is going wrong. That is false. Therapy can be used as preventative. It could be used as maintenance. It can be used when something is going wrong. But I just want to call out something. We go to our PCP annually when there's nothing wrong. We go to our dentist every 6 months because our insurance pay for it, or every 6 months. So why not take care of your mental health in a preventative way as well? So that's what I do.
Excellent, excellent. So what I'm hearing, the 2 MDs have said, make space on your own. Supposed to have a good diet, exercise, watch what you're eating, what other things you tell us to do. But all the instructions you get from your doctor that you need to do on your own. Find that private space and then marry that with therapy. Go back to your doctor. You go to your primary care. You go to your dentist. So it's important that we do both and. That there is the personal therapeutic moments. We translate that in our community as our prayer life. I'm a proponent that I want us to be ambassadors that that meditation is not just for other communities. I'm not against yoga or any other matter of meditation, but the Christian, the disciple of Jesus, needs to have a time where we are in meditation. We meditate over the scripture. You can meditate in silence. This is not something for some other discipline. Christians, people who love Jesus, need to have times of meditation. And part of that meditation is why we have survived over the years. It's been therapy to us. But we have not gotten full care, Dr. Tripp, in terms of dealing with the mind. And so we talk about the Hebrew boys in the fire, and they come out, and there's nothing wrong with them, and they don't have a blemish on their body. And we praise God for that, as we should. But African Americans oftentimes do that a lot. We do the miracle, I came through it, I'm better now. Well, but you did go through it and you overcame it, and that's wonderful. But you still went through it. In other words, I got out of the bad marriage. I got out of the abusive relationship. I overcame my childhood abuse. I overcame, and now I'm successful. I got a career. I'm doing great. But yeah, that stuff still is there with me and hangs with me. And I need to address it. So for instance, if you get a heart transplant, I said this in our Bible study, folks listen online. But I get a heart transplant, if I got a heart transplant, that's a miracle of God. That God would deposit into humanity the genius to be able to take a heart from somebody who has deceased and put it into the body to extend human life. What a miracle. And you survive it. That is to be praised. That is to be celebrated. But that's not the end of the healing. You still have got to do some things. They don't just say, sew you up and send you right back to the hospital, home. You have to have some recovery days because they want to monitor you. They want to make sure that the heart is going to be accepted. And now you're going to have to live different. You can't go out here and have a heart transplant and think you're going to eat chitlins and fried chicken every day because you're still healing. And there's going to be some medicine you need to take. And it's going to have to change my lifestyle. And I'm going to have to, because I'm not denying I had a heart transplant. I'm here. God got me here. Praise God. But don't act like it didn't happen. And so this is why, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this interaction today, because I think it's so important that we address our whole selves as faith believers. And I believe if Black people fully get that care, the world's going to be in trouble. Because we've been surviving without it all this time and not even knowing, not being able to name those things. But I'm glad about this road. Last thing before I come to the audience, because the last thing I want to mention is how we addressing specifically, Dr. Tripp, how do we address finding a therapist? Because as you know, we're in this renaissance of mental wellness, and everybody's got a practice, everybody's got a way to do it, they got some therapy for you to do. Tell me about how to identify, what's the process of a therapist? Because I say, listen, treat you finding a therapist like finding a good barber or a good beautician. Every beautician ain't gonna work for you, right? So you have to find the person. So can you speak to that a little bit and how to identify who's good for you?
Yes, absolutely. You definitely have to take it seriously. Research shows that 90% of the change that you see in the therapy room is due to the therapeutic alliance you have with your counselor. This is the person you are going to be vulnerable with. You are going to share some of the most painful points in your life. So to your point, I would definitely start with a recommendation or a referral. If you don't have that from your inner community, you can always go online. There are specific platforms like Therapy for Black Girls or blacktherapist.org. And there's also Psychology Today where you can filter down for what you're looking for. a good therapist will provide you with a free 15-minute consultation just so you can connect and see if you align, see if the way they practice makes sense for what you're experiencing, because it will be a journey. Therapy isn't an overnight fix. A lot of the work that you do will be outside of the therapy room, outside of your 1 hour with your counselor per week. And it's going to require a strong relationship and bond and commitment on both sides going forward.
Well, you all have a bag in your seats today that has Dr. Tripp's information. She has over 60 therapists, so has a person that will fit you. I feel very confident and comfortable in endorsing her. You know, if you know me, I take this work very seriously. And so we will have her information online and those who she has. We need to promote this in our communities. And why would we not use someone who's already done the work in our community, amen, who looks like you and I, amen. I am not, it is you'll say, well, just make it all inclusive. I am inclusive, but the point is, Black people need this more than other communities, amen. It's okay to have for everybody, but Black folks need it. Because I don't say in the neighborhood, you know, when my house is on fire, you say, use water for all the houses. No, I need the water. My house on fire. So it's not to be exclusive, but inclusive to the fact and being specific. I want to go into the audience now. I know you have your own questions. Let's switch here. I'll take questions if you have them for our panelists.
What is the difference between shyness and social anxiety? I have a niece who has extreme social anxiety. She just can't work with anyone else. She just can't be around people. They make her anxious. So where do you leave? Like when she was younger, we just thought she was shy. But as she became an adult, it became something more serious.
My response to that is when it starts impeding with her daily activities in life. If she cannot function normally throughout life, it definitely is something you should look into and seek professional guidance. So I hope that's helpful.
I wanted to ask if any of you are familiar with Dr. Heather Stone. She is talking exactly about everything, but she comes from the perspective, change your diet, just eat protein and vegetables. And I was just wondering if you guys have ever added that to your repertoire to help your clients, because you are what you eat, right? So I was wondering if you've ever checked her out, and because she talks about the body-mind connection and how this affects that and that affects this. So I was just wondering, speaking on the line of the body-mind connection.
I don't know her work, but I am a true proponent that eating healthy is probably much better than eating high fat, high caloric foods. I think it improves our blood brain flow. And I think that that's really important because if you're eating highly processed foods, high fat foods, then you're clogging those blood vessels, which then are not getting enough blood flow to your brain, which then means everything's not going to work quite as well. I think nutrition is important. I think exercise is also important because it gets that blood flow moving and making sure that everything is nourished properly. So I agree that that's a very necessary part for all of us to be aware of if we're going to remain healthy. You can't have health without good food, exercise, and good mental health and relationships. I think you have to have people.
This question is directed to Dr. How do you know
when you need therapy? You know, we've been taught to hold things in or just suck it up, or so how can you find out that you really need help? There any particular sign that
Yes, when the situation does not get better and you continue experiencing feelings of being overwhelmed, when you start isolating yourself, when it starts turning into maybe sadness, irritability, restlessness, insomnia is a major flag when you aren't able to rest. Um, those are all signs and symptomology where the consult may make sense just to share a little bit of information about what you're experiencing. And who knows, it may turn into a full blown intake in which your clinician can identify and help you name what the things that are happening in your life to help start the process of unpacking and processing your experiences. So, that I hope it answers your question.
Okay, I have a question. Do you have any advice for parents who may have adult children or even young adult children who you feel may need mental health services, or but they're like resistant to going, or they feel as if maybe they feel as if they don't need it? Like, what advice would you give to a parent?
Ooh, I love working with families, and the way I reel those young adults in, reel those kids in, is I get the parents to the table first. You enroll yourself first. You engage in your therapeutic process first, and then you invite them in. You invite them to the table because it's easier to follow or receive guidance from someone who's walking the walk.
This question, Dr. Tripp. We talked earlier about how mostly women, we carry so much. We're always on the go, trying to multitask. Do you believe in all of the doing that we are compensating or using that as a distraction from else in life that we need to be focused on? And if that's the case, how, especially if you're already in therapy and doing the work, how do you identify something that might be deeper when you're doing good, but you're still not doing?
I'm just going to just respond to that, even though it was not necessarily directed to me. Women take on too many roles all the time, and I think that we are. I think we do too much, and we think that we can accomplish all of the things that we have signed up for, and so therefore that layer of pressure, that layer of, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I can't get all these things done, it circles and it follows you all along. I think sometimes the answer isn't yes. And I think if we all learn that, that's half the battle. But all of you accomplished women have 12 more things to do today. And sometimes the answer isn't yes. And I see an old time friend that's in the back, and I wanted to catch her eye and wave at her because she's always doing 50 things at once anyway. But sometimes the answer isn't yes. And I just can't stress that enough because I think that that's what gets us all. And then you're unhappy and unwell.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question over here.
Hi, this question is for Dr. Tripp, and it relates to Christians going for therapy. We spoke about it's difficult for a lot of Christians to want to go to therapy. Do you find that, in reflecting on it, that many of the principles and the teachings of therapy, if you get close enough to it, it is similar to the Bible? That there's a correlation between the Christian theory and some of the schools of thought for therapy, and the relationship with kind of using that to encourage and kind of weaken those that say, no, I want to stick to the Bible. But have you found that the principles have been similar?
That's a both and question. I think so. Let me explain. It's a both and question and answer. It goes back to your provider's competence and your provider's familiarity with where they practice from. So I'm very comfortable with infusing Christian principles and Bible into my work, but the next clinician may not. So when I was saying that the consultation, the alignment is important and necessary, it is. And you, when you're seeking out providers, you can be very honest and transparent. I am looking for a Black woman Christian provider who is able to help me align my faith and beliefs with the work we're going to be doing in this room together.
I want to address that. I think that it is important that the Christian in every area of their life, that we're in a community of faith believers. That is the optimal space that we want to operate in as Christian, the Christian community, beloved community. I want to have a doctor who loves the Lord. I want to have a barber who loves the Lord. However, if I'm having a heart attack in the middle of this floor right now, and a Hindu doctor comes, I'm not really concerned about that. I'm really more concerned about how proficient are you in your practice and how you can help me, right? And here's the deal. I can bring you to the Lord, but I don't know cardiology, right? So I'm holding it in balance, right? That I'm finding a new dentist right now. And it's going to be great if they have Jesus. But I want to know where you went to med school and who recommends you, right? And so I hear what you're saying, and that has its space. And as we're talking in here, there's this balance between, I am your spiritual counselor. I'm going to be your spiritual counselor, your spiritual aid, but there's a line when you're going to need some clinical help. Luckily, I have Dr. Tripp, who does love the Lord, but I don't want that to be a deterrent, right? Because as I said, if you're having a heart attack on the ground and the Hindu doctor comes up, help me, right? So I think that's important. And what I'm saying is that the Christian must bring their faith to therapy. That therapy is part of my spiritual development. And just as I go to my primary care doctor who does my blood work, I know that he's a Puerto Rican descent, but he knows I'm a pastor. He knows he loves the Lord. But beyond that, I don't know his faith practice. But he done got my pressure down. I done lost a bunch of weight with him. So he's working for me. So I want to say to you, Trustee, that all of us and those online, it's not necessary that your therapist lead with their faith. But it is important that your therapist understands culturally where you come from.
I just want to say, just to piggyback, at least at my medical school, we try to infuse that with our students so that when they leave to take care of patients, that they have a mindfulness that they must treat them humanistically. And it may not be true religion, but respectfully always, because life is so precious. And I think it works because it causes us to pause. So there are many times within hospital settings, if there is a win, we're all celebrating. If there's a loss, we take pause to note that also. And the hospital chaplains are very valuable. They just are. And so I think that most hospital entities still believe that and have that available for us, and or you can bring in your own clergy to pray with you, pray for you, if you're undergoing serious illness. But I don't think it's as foreign as it used to be. Even in the operating room, it's quite
possible that people can pause just for a moment before a patient goes to sleep. So don't ever be afraid to ask for those things because it's more common than you know. We just professionally respect the wishes of the patient and we don't necessarily impart our own um, thoughts about that. But I know for myself, it was something I would do almost every case, especially in between cases, because you had to collect yourself so that you could be ready for that next patient so that you could take care of them well. We all need that. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a cook, you have to make sure that you're settled so that you can get everything done correctly. So
Yeah.
it's never going to go away, at least not for me.
So, yeah, I do chaplaincy work as well, and what I want to be clear about, though, everyone who's listening, that there sometimes is this mishmash therapy of Bible and therapeutic idea, and I'm speaking specifically to that when I walk into an emergency room situation, I walk in as the chaplain, as the spiritual provider, helping the person to find agency where they are. But I got a whole bunch of nurses and doctors around me that are going to deal with the medical issue at hand, right? So that's what I want to say about that. It can get kind of tricky when we start to talk about the mind and the spirit. They are connected, but we need to make sure that we're clear that we have both and operating together. And it's a team of care, as Doc spoke to in the hospital setting. It's always a team, right? A chaplain has their role, the nurse has their role, the doctors have their role, the orderlies have their role. Everybody has a role and participates in the care of the patient. So, yeah, we can come in asking for those things, but I want you to be clear, those who are in the room and online, that make sure you have and. I have, and so in certain sense, I counsel people here in Port St. Lucie, but then I direct them to their clinical provider. Now, that doesn't minimize what I do. And in one case, the counselor, the clinical counselor, and myself are in conversation to help the person so they get complete care. It's the team sometimes that you need. Any other questions? We got about.
Just really quickly, you all have talked about it already, but I know if you're looking for help, a psychologist or whatever, you'll have that 15 minutes. You decide if you're a good match, and you can talk about at that time asking, are you a Christian? And you get that information. But Dr. Tequila, and how do we find out? You got your insurance, you're looking in the book, trying to find a provider. How can I find out if my provider is a Christian before I go and ask the question? You see me, and you're going to come in and want to know how you can help me, and that's what I want. But to get to know more about you, I can look and see that you have a medical degree. How can I find out before I get there? It's uncomfortable, to be honest, when I'm in there with you to say, hey, are you a Christian? And I don't know if you've ever had that before, but what are the options there, Doctor?
You're talking specifically about just like your primary care physician or your
Yeah,
psychiatrist?
yes, primary care physician, Dr. Juliet.
So for me, I'll say just ask the question. I mean, I don't think there's anything out there with my information that specifies my religion. And I don't know of any search your doctor that can filter out your religion. So I'll say just have that conversation in the visit, and don't shy away from that, because I have had patients who have asked me if I was Christian, and that was a huge relief. I've prayed with my patients in the room before. So I'm willing to go there with my patients if that's to wherever their comfort is. So if I don't think anyone would really feel offended or feel uncomfortable with being asked that question, I think that's probably the best place to ask it, honestly.
Okay, hi. Thank you all. I have two questions. One is for myself as a perimenopausal woman. Um, where do I go to get support to determine if I need hormone replacement therapy? I've gone to my primary care physician who said, I don't do those tests, go to your OBGYN. My OBGYN says, oh, you're in the normal ranges for your age. And, but I hear when I talk to other people, and, social media is crazy about perimenopausal care. I still, so it's telling me to go to these online providers who can maybe help me, but I don't necessarily feel comfortable. So I feel a little lost on where I'm supposed to go to get the support.
Sorry, I'm not still working because that was probably my favorite thing to do. And I'm a big believer that that transitional period really needs support. You need somebody that's probably doing gynecology only, not both, because then they are dedicated just really to that fraction of the medical problem. Because it's such a vast specialty, obstetrics and gynecology, it's like you can't compartmentalize your brain well. So there are people that do just hormone replacement. Nowadays, people are doing pellets. They can do patches during this transitional. I'm a big proponent, did it for years and years. Your head's not going to fall off with the right dose. I can actually give you a name of someone, actually, as I think about this. But that's kind of what, somebody that's GYN only.
Okay, yes. The second question I have is I am a supporter of mental health wellness. I've done my own personal work, and I try to encourage others to do the work. I have I've encountered situations where people are, they've tried it, but they didn't really feel like it helped. So then they just threw it out the window because they went to one provider. I know I believe, Dr. Tripp, you mentioned uh, you just like you go to one hairstylist, or maybe it was Pastor Will, that hairstylist isn't good. So you keep trying until you find it. But oftentimes these people are not really, they don't believe in it. So they're not willing to invest the time and energy that it takes to find a good provider. How can I encourage them to go beyond that first experience and keep trying for their own mental wellness if they personally don't believe in it? Even if I've shared my story and my journey and my successes, do I just pray for them and trust the Lord to move, or is there any other practical steps you can offer?
Great question. Boy, boy, that's a difficult question, right? Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. That's a difficult question because, to your point, people get burnt out or overwhelmed with the process. And I would say yes, pray for them. But also, as you mentioned, sharing your own story is usually helpful. But that's where that community of referrals is important. Tried and true clinicians that you can name and that you can say, hey, I have real life experience here. This could also be impactful for you. Give this person a shot. So building that community of trusted providers within our culture is definitely necessary because, as I mentioned, all providers are not equal, and not every provider is going to be a good fit or match. And studies show it usually takes about 3 to 5 tries before you find your fit. So just education around that, like, no, you're not doing anything wrong. That's what the research shows. That's what the research says. Stick with it and you will get there.
So it's a commitment. Any other question?
Okay, we've been talking a lot about women's issues, but women have significant others maybe sons, maybe husbands. Um, and we know that while we go through stress and we can cry it out or get on the phone and call your girlfriend or whatever and talk it out, I think the men don't have that kind of resource, or they don't use that kind of resource. And while we may see that they're acting out or by their behavior that they're going through stress and they need to talk it out, but they won't talk to us. Okay, so how do we try and get our men to look for the help that they need? Because even though we're under stress, we may not recognize it, we may not want to say it, but they're under more stress than we are. I mean, we have family stresses. We have stresses that we put up on ourselves, and a little bit the world puts on us, but we deal with that. But the men have stress that's put on them at work. The people, like you talked about the bear, you know, you have to go back to that job. You have to deal with these people. So how can we let them know that there are resources out there that can help them deal with the bear?
Gonna get on the panel for this one when we come join y'all. No, I'm not. But let me say this. I would say with my own experience is that my own experience has been that support, right? Our women, whether spouse, girlfriend, mother, whatever your role is with the male that you're speaking about, is important to come from a space of support and never trying to diagnose or try to name call. The worst thing you can do for a man is to try to tell them what's wrong with them, as opposed to supporting what you may see the need is. And what I mean by that is, for example, instead of saying to that man, you got some issues going on with you, the approach should probably be, I know you've been through a lot, and I know you carry a lot. And I can't imagine what it is to have gone through what you've gone through and to deal with what you're dealing with. Because as a black man, we are trying to prove our worth all the time, in every setting, every situation. And so when that guy, that son, that brother, that husband, the biggest thing you can do for them is to make them feel valued for what they're doing, even if they have dysfunctional behavior, right? That's the challenge, that you know they're operating in dysfunction, but you have to help them feel good about themselves so they have enough to go and get the help, right? Because I'm already down. Now you're going to pull me down some more, and you're going to tell me I got to do this other thing to be better when I'm already trying to be better every day of my life, prove myself. So I think it's important as the women in this world that we are supportive of our brothers and recognizing, as you did say, you already carry a lot. You got a lot, too, that you're going on. I don't think that gets said enough to our brothers. And I think that it's important. The power of a woman, Lord have mercy, the power of a woman, the most powerful thing in the world, I believe, that from my experience has been a black woman. And they've been all through my life, through my grandmother, my mother, my sister, who's my best friend, and now my wife. And the power that they give of speaking into that person. If you identify there's an issue, you identify that there's something that needs to be need, build them up so that they'll be able to go and get the work that they need done. It is a challenge in our community. We need not to name some things. Let's give a statistic here. I think the number is like less than 3% are African-American psychiatrists in this country, something like that. And then I think it's like 3 or 4% black or brown. And then for black, it's less than that. And so providers are an issue. So I'm so excited that we have this new segment of therapy, right? All psychiatrists don't do therapy, but we have this new space of therapy where we have the Dr. Trips of the world, where we have access to, clinical care for our mental wellness. So I want to let Dr. Tripp go, but I want to speak as a man that the most encouraging thing that can be done is to validate the man. And to not validate to a point of just stroking ego. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying acknowledging the world in which we live, the things that they're facing, even in their dysfunction, guys, online too, even in their dysfunction, you got to be able to step over that because you're trying to get somebody help. If somebody's drowning, you don't say, take my hand, you give them a hand. You tell me, take your hand, I'm already trying to stay above water. I ain't got no, give me, grab me. And so it may be difficult sometimes. So if a person, my mother used this example, if a person comes into a room and they're bleeding, because oftentimes when a person have these responses, these dysfunctional responses, is bleeding. So if somebody comes in the room and they're bleeding, you don't say, stop bleeding on the floor. You try to get something to help them to wrap it up. So that's kind of my answer to it. And I'm sure Dr. Tripp has a better, Dr. Lomax or
Yes, from a wife perspective, I just wanted to share a few things that I noticed that helps with like my husband. And so, yes, acknowledging and validating this feelings, but also allowing him to have his own like social support, right? Like you mentioned, like women, we have our girlfriends, we have our nail day, we have our hair day. So we're doing the things to kind of help with our mental health. And sometimes you may not you for the man it may look different, right? And so allowing them to have that time to do what it is that they need to do to de-stress. And so it may look like um playing a video game for an hour. It may look like, going out with the guys for, twice a month, and sometimes those things may be things that you may not 100% like or want because you may want to, keep hubby to yourself or whatnot. But allowing your significant other to have their space, to have their time apart from you that may be good for their mental health.
And just to piggyback off of what Pastor Will said, the way you were sharing how to address the Black man is a trauma informed approach. And Black men, and you can look this up now or when you get home, carry a gene, a trauma gene that has been detected to be passed down to our children. So it's very important for us to approach the situation not what is wrong with you, but what has happened to you.
my God. Whew. Uh, amen. That's a word upon itself. What happened to you? All right. Okay, any other questions from our audience? No more questions. So in closing, we've talked about a lot of various things today. And so I'd like for you in your one-liner or in your 30, 40 seconds to tell us what you want us to do when we leave. I know you gave us an idea of what you wanted the one takeaway, but after hearing from the audience, does your informed answer change, or you want to add something to what you want us to give? And we can go down the line. I want to just say thank you to all of you. Thank you to our panelists. And we're going to be doing a series of these. We're going to have to obviously come out of this for me. My one takeaway is that we need to do something specifically for Black men. And so that will be our next panel. Dr. Shakila, Camp, come back to it.
I think it's important not to overlook substance abuse. I think that that's a hidden problem that we never will see, and even with the women in the audience, you may never admit to, but that's one thing that people do all the time. They self-medicate quietly behind closed doors, and you don't forget that. And for us as medical providers, that's the question that you have to ask point blank so that people will be caught off guard and give you the correct response. Women especially have their ups and downs, and they may self-medicate quite frequently. You may not admit to it, but I think it's a question that you have to ask when you're screening people so that we don't miss that. And just be mindful of that one factor, because that's very easy for people to hide, because we don't go home with you.
I guess another thing is, you know, you don't know what people are going through, right? And so just be kind and also be able to be part of that support system for any individual. And it doesn't have to always, like for me, I'm a provider, so not always, that's not always the approach that I might have on everyone. But for someone else, you may be the one to refer to someone else, or just be a listening ear. And so we all can support each other in different ways. And so just be kind to one another and be gentle with one another.
Yes, I'm in agreement with everything you ladies have shared. To add to that is to continue the conversation, keep it going. Um, Mental wellness isn't the responsibility of the individual, it's for all of us. And we have to support one another, and in the church, outside of the church, and workspaces, and spaces that we take up space. It's just important to be open and supportive and non judgmental when approaching these topics.
Thank you so much. I know I was helped today. So I want to say thank you to our panelists. You are exceptional. I am so impressed with this panel, and I hope that you all will come back and participate with us in the future. Amen. Come on, give them another hand. We have a token of our appreciation.
Say it, but the young people, like in schools with everything that's going on with the erasure of Black history, the deportations that are going to resume. We have young people. I've been working with the school over here, and we've had children that's been absent because they're afraid to go to, their parents are afraid to take them to school for fear that they're going to get, that the parents are going to get snatched. So the children are afraid, the parents are afraid, our teenagers are afraid. The teenagers, I had teenagers that just graduated from Port St. Lucie High that didn't like going to school because they were so, the other students there were so racist against them. So, and now they're getting ready to go off to school, and I'm concerned because one's going far away, one's not so far, going so far away, but still, they'll be separate when they've been each other's support. So, is there something in the school district? I know that they have psychologists in the schools, but they're not in every school. And school counselors don't really counsel. They deal with behavior issues, but they wait until it becomes a behavior issue, and we know that children act out when they're stressed and they don't know how to say what's wrong. So is there something that can reach into the schools and help our children who are dealing with trauma, just like everybody? They're dealing with trauma, and because of their age, or they don't have systems in place, or they don't know how to say that they're hurting. What's coming?
We have an educator here. You guys open the answer, but we have an educator here who might be able to speak to that. And I have a college professor here as well. So we have some experts in the audience. You want to take a stab at it? Candace Stone.
What's interesting is that is something I've been in education for many, many eons. And what's happened over the last 10 years is mental health is very, very prevalent. And as a result of that, our guidance counselors, who sometimes don't counsel, but they do have groups, they do have the circles, they do have regulation skills, and then they do some independent things where if students are doing self-harm and things such as that, there's a battery of questions that they go through. As a result of that battery of questions, it lends itself to things that you all don't know, and probably I know because I'm closer. Sometimes we notice that there's an issue, and as a result of that, we make the recommendation that maybe you need to see an outside counselor. Now, guess what happens? If that parent does not agree, does not fill out the paperwork, because it's free, guess what happens? Those children do not get those type of services that they deserve. So, Ms. Stone, what happens in that case is that kid may still come in and see our guidance counselor, but they won't have the higher tier that really is necessary. So, and then it doesn't mean that we give up. We continue to ask and support slowly. But the goal is for the student to then go in, and when they're young in elementary, they're not at a place where they can say, Mom, I need a counselor. By the time they get to ninth grade, that's in high school on the other side, then they're saying, oh, I need some help. And those providers actually come to the school. So therefore, when they come, you can say, when does that happen? It doesn't happen during our core classes, which is English, math, science, or social studies. That happens during that elective class, or it can happen during lunch. So there is support, but sometimes the parent doesn't follow through, and it takes a little bit of time. So hopefully that helps for the middle school and high school level, and now we go to college.
I think when you hit it on the head, though, the schools appear to be doing everything within their power. So now you know, as a community member, to maybe get with your network, inform them in terms of reaching out to the schools and partnering that way, because that's the only way it's going to go full circle. You know, it takes a village, and we need you as well as what's going on in the schools.
Elementary counseling, Palm Beach County, into mindfulness, and as you say.
Okay, so that brings me to where we were closing, that this is an ongoing conversation that needs to be happening. Thank you for that question, and thank you for the response, Candace Stone, because what I hear is that the African American church needs to do what it always has done and be the substitute for our people in things that we don't get in other spaces. So it's our job to educate those parents and to let them know the value of my body and my mind connected together as not just a spiritual thing, but it is another one of those things that when we use the church to get out the black vote or use the church to use in other issues of justice, this is a justice issue. Mental wellness is a justice issue. Other communities have other resources. They have down through the years known the value of it. They have had the resources to go and get it, but we don't know the value of it now that it's free for us because we don't have an appreciation for it. So we got some work to do, and we're going to do it together as a community. We have some refreshments for you afterwards. I want to again, please help me thank our panelists one more time. This is Dr. There was a misprint. Amen. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Come on. Encourage them. Thank you so much. There was a misprint in our bio. This is Dr. Campbell. This is Dr. Lomax. And this is Dr. Tripp. She's the one who provided the packages that you have in your seats. And again, we're going to have the information. You can go to her website. She has a list of providers that you can see. We're going to be adding a link to our Facebook, Instagram, and, well, our Facebook and our website, as well as we'll be promoting it through our other socials. So again, thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the refreshments, and we will be here tomorrow every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. for worship service. God bless you, and may the Lord be with you.